KFLS News Time now is 8:35, time for Klamath Talks, and KFLS welcomes to our studios this morning Republican candidate for House District number 56, Tracey Liskey. Good morning, Tracey, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
As we do with every political candidate, if you would, Tracey, give our listeners the brief synopsis of Tracey's life story, we call it.
Yeah, I'm a third-generation farmer, a Republican. I've been born and raised right here in the Klamath Basin. This is my home and my life, and that's one reason I'm so passionate about the opportunity to serve it. I graduated from Lost River High School, went to Reading Community College, and then to OIT for some follow-up education. I married my lovely wife, Susan, have two wonderful children, daughter Lydia and a son, Patrick. After college, I went to work on the home ranch. Worked with my dad, brother, and sister to develop the ranch. We started a geothermal park. We developed Liskey Farms Nursery to fit the region, grow plants in the area and for the climate. As we developed it, I became very involved in local issues, joined Farm Bureau at the county level, and then went to the state level. Been on the Oregon State Farm Bureau Board for over 17 years. I was appointed to the Governor's Sustainability Board for about 4 to 6 years. Currently serving on the Oregon Department of Agriculture. This committee experience has taught me how to work with people that have different ways of thinking and different agendas. This work in the policy sector has kind of become my passion, and that's why I'm running for this position, and I'm excited to bring my committee experience and my job creating experience to Salem.
When you made the decision to run for the Oregon legislature, was that based upon a particular incident that occurred somewhere in the recent past, or was it something you'd been thinking about for a while? Why are you jumping into politics now at this stage of your life? Farmers are generally pretty darn busy out there.
Yeah, well, there's 2 or 3 things that kind of got me in here. On our ranch, as I said, I work with my brothers and sisters, and I'm the youngest of the family, and they're getting a little older. Because of 2001 and the water shut off, we lost our next generation. They decided that they needed a job that had a real future to it without the water crisis. And so we kind of went into a retirement mode. We're more renting a lot of our land out and going into a landlord type issue. Being involved with the Oregon State Farm Bureau for the past 17 years and the other committee work, I became real passionate about the politics and the issues that affect our district and our state, and how to make those two fit together, being a very diverse state of the west side, east side type issues. And when Bill Garrard decided not to run, this position came open, talked with my wife and my family, and decided it was a good time to step in and see what I could do for the district and for the state.
The KBRA, very controversial, as you know. Do you get a lot of questions about it, and what is your position on that issue?
Yes, I get a lot of questions about it. That's probably number one thing.
No matter where you are in the county, pretty much?
Well, mainly here in Klamath.
Mm-hmm.
When you get out in the Lakeview area, it doesn't become such an issue, and Lakeview is part of my district.
Yeah, but let me interrupt for just a moment. I apologize for that. Right before I have you answer that question about KBRA, describe, if you would, your district if you are elected. Where is it, and how big is it, and where does it go from to?
Okay, my district runs from the west border of the Klamath County all the way to Lakeview and grabs the town of Lakeview. Runs from the California border north to just south of Chiloquin and almost straight across in a nice square there.
All right. And so again, KBRA, your position on it?
The water issue is a very complicated issue, but I'm a very solution-based person. I don't like all the parts of the KBRA, like the dam removal, but the only way to work with a very diverse group of people is to compromise. And with any compromise, there are things that you do not like. This agreement gives stability to the agriculture sector, which in turn gives stability to our basin's economy, which in turn makes much more attractive to bring businesses in, and we need jobs. Business pays the bills. I like looking forward out through the windshield, not back through the rearview mirror like my opponent. And it's easy to say no, but really hard to work with people and find an answer. This is only one issue, and we have 99 other ones in our toolbox. And as a legislator, this is an issue that I probably won't even get to vote on because it's at the federal level. But one water issue that I can vote on is the Columbia River project, which puts 10,000 jobs in water to agriculture.
And that failed to get through the legislature, although I guess the governor was recently up in Northeast Oregon indicating he thinks there's a way to allow that to happen. Why do you think that didn't pass? Is it that, for lack of a better word, ignorance on the part of too many legislators, particularly from urban areas who don't fully understand farming, agriculture, the timber industry, rural issues, if you will?
That's a lot of it. This session was the 1 month session in the new way of the policy. It was really too short a session to take on such a complicated bill. We did a lot of work on it, but we needed some more groundwork. There will be a lot more groundwork done before we move into the more lengthier session this year, and we should be able to get it passed and educate the city legislatures and work forward in that way. This
week, an administrative law judge upheld the Klamath Tribe's water rights on Upper Klamath Lake and the Klamath River, and they're saying, even though, of course, they're happy with this adjudication ruling, they think the KBRA is the best way to deal with these water issues. Your thoughts on adjudication, and any surprise to you the way these rulings are going?
No, actually, that's one of the reasons I supported the KBRA from the beginning, is because the adjudication, most of the people in the upper basin have a junior right to the tribe. Well, everybody has a junior right to the tribe because it's time immemorial. And without working and doing this compromise, a lot of those people will be out of water because the state will now start regulating water next year. And because adjudication hasn't been finished, it's never been done, and they've never been shut off like the project part has due to the federal nexus. But that issue, you know, I've talked with the tribes in the past, went up and tried to educate myself on their issues and even if they got half the water that they were asking for, and they got more than that, most of those farmers would only be able to irrigate about 3 out of 10 years, and you can't run a farm 3 out of 10 years and make money on it. So working with the KBRA, and the KBRA, the tribes have known, you know, they thought they were going to get their water right, but they've been willing to work to help their people and also help the people in the irrigation district and in the irrigation project, and help the fish and the environment, trying to make this compromise that we all can work forward to. Yeah, we don't like parts of it, but when you put in the adjudication coming down, my opponent says we need to start all over, but you know, with the tribes having won this water right, there's not a lot of reason for them to come back into the ball game and say we're willing to give it up because we've already won it. So we need to keep the work, the talking, and keep moving forward, trying to find some way of getting this issue a problem, because we need jobs in our basin. And when the economy is in a very unstable situation like it is now, no businesses want to move in here. And until we get this basin stabilized and the water situation stabilized, it's really hard to bring business in, which helps the people in the towns and helps the jobs, gets the unemployment up, raises more money into our tax pool without raising taxes. Then we have more money for education, we have more money for sheriffs. It's a win-win situation, but we have to stabilize the economy, and the only way to do that is continue talks, continue working on the projects we're doing.
Should the KBRA collapse in Congress and the House, controlled by Republicans, appears that they're not going to move forward, although nobody can accurately predict the future, but I mean the common thinking is that there just isn't support in the U.S. House of Representatives. Should the KBRA collapse and you are elected, what can be done at the state level to try to pick up the pieces if it does fall apart?
Well, I think we need to make sure we keep the communication that's happened. In the communication that we've done so far, We've already changed the biological opinions on the river and the lake twice, so they now work together and talk together. Before, they didn't even know what each other was doing. The river would drain the lake, and then the lake would be too low, and then irrigation had no water. So now they're trying to work together, running, minimal levels. Has a lot to do with the input of Mother Nature, how much water has to be stored back. Those things are huge. In 2010, if it wouldn't have been for the work we've done on KBRA, there had been a lot less irrigation water put out in the district. So all these things are moving forward. We're gaining ground. The agencies and the Bureau and the water users and the Upper Grayson are talking more. The tribes are talking. We have a very collaborative situation going, and as a state legislator, that's the kind of thing that I want to keep going and keep moving. And a lot of my work on the committees that I've done in the Sustainability Board and with Oregon Farm Bureau has been with a very diverse group of people, from environmentalists to city to everybody, and trying to find that common ground and moving forward. And I think that's kind of my specialty, and what I bring to this race is that ability to work with people of different ways of thinking, find that common ground, find the common thread, and move forward without selling the ranch, but find something that goes forward and gain, instead of sitting there and saying no and fighting. And I think the people are really tired of how our government says no and we're not getting anything done. And so we need to work forward, and that's what I bring to this situation.
Many rural legislators upset with various elements of state law, and land use planning is among the top organizations, or among the top laws that gets criticism. Your view of the current way that Oregon does its land use planning, and changes that you think are needed for rural areas of the state?
Well, one thing about working on the Oregon Farm Bureau Board for 17 years, you go at the start of that process. I represented Klamath and Lake counties at the state level, so you're representing like the district I represent now. But then you deal with the 21 other people on the board that are from every part of the state, and you have all these issues. But the problem with Oregon land use law, you make one law that tries to fit a state that's very diverse. And so you have to represent your district, but you also have to represent the whole state. And as a legislature, you're in the same job. You've got to push your district's points forward, but when that law gets passed, it's for the whole state, so you've got to make sure that it fits the best for everywhere. And looking at those kind of things in land use on the Farm Bureau level was the same issue. And until we can make regionalization, as the legislature passed a pilot program this last session in Southern Oregon, and that's been one of Farm Bureau's priorities since I've been on the board, is try to get regionalization that has different parts of the state can be ruled differently because they are different. But the valley has to have land use to protect it from the Portland urbanization moving out and coming on them, and protect that ability to farm and work. But Eastern Oregon, we have rock piles and stuff that would have nice, really nice place to put homes, and not on that farm ground in the east side. So we need to kind of move people from the west side over here on the east side and let them live here and farm over there. But those are kind of issues we've got to work to find the regionalization. How do we make laws that fit the state, that fit all parts of it, not just one part of it? And that's the beauty of the kind of work that I've done in Farm Bureau and on these committees, of finding that common ground.
I remember some years ago, Grant County got into a dispute with LCDC over a zoning matter, and as a younger man, I went over to do a television story. As a younger man, I went over to do a television story on it, and the complaint you heard from Grant County was, here you are, a Portland guy, coming over here to do this story about us getting into a beef with LCDC. You live in Portland, and in Washington County, right outside the Portland doorstep, they're burying some of the world's best soil under Japanese high-tech plants.
Yeah, no, it is an extreme issue of, and as farmers in that area, I've learned the importance of land use. When I first went in Farm Bureau, I thought it was kind of stupid. But when you get there and you see the other parts of the state and how they do, you realize the importance of it. But you also realize that one size does not fit all in this state, and we really have to work on trying to make those apparatus and also educating those people that control the legislature out of the Portland metropolitan area of the importance of rural Oregon, and selling what we have in rural Oregon as our climate, our land space, our transportation, our people. They're all very beautiful things, and we have to sell Klamath to Salem and make sure that the projects coming out of Salem fit rural Oregon also, because 1 or 2 jobs in Lakeview is like 100 to 200 jobs in Portland. And so we got to make sure the economic packages coming out of that area fit rural Oregon, come in smaller packages. We're not just working on that I-5, I-84 corridor. We need to work on the 97 corridor and the Highway 140 corridor, and get things that fit rural Oregon that work everywhere and can still fit the other part of the state too.
One of the complaints you hear from rural legislators is that a lot of the land described as farm use is really not very good, and same with timber production, that it's really not that good. And there may, some people, would you support a re-examination of lands under a regionalized land use approach to really determine whether in fact a family can make a living off this farmland, or whether it needs to be rezoned?
Yes, regionalization, I think, is the only answer we have to land use. It's got to be very carefully looked at. So, but it is the only thing that I can see that answers the question on these things. And you're right, there's a lot of places that, you know, if we have 4 or 5, 6 grade class soil with rocks and stuff in it, you're not going to make a living off of it. You might run a few cows or a few sheep on it, but that isn't going to make your living. And so we have to make sure that the people in rural Oregon have the same opportunity that the people in the valley do, while protecting the valley at the same time.
Recently, one of the school superintendents, we were talking about a levy coming up on the ballot in May, and he pointed out that funding for K-12 education had been cut 6 bienniums in a row. Of course, we've gone through this horrible recession all over the state of Oregon. If you're elected, what is your philosophy, and what would you advocate for in terms of funding for K-12 and community colleges and higher ed?
Well, these things are very, very important to us, and especially with the college we have, OIT, that's so key to this area and so important. But everybody wants that same amount of money, and the pie is only so big. What we have to do is make this a very business-friendly state, bring business in so we can grow the size of that pie. Without increasing the size of the pie, there just isn't any more money. We can make things more lean and all this, but problem with the colleges and the schools, we're taking money away, but we're adding that debt to the students, as in student loans and all these things. And it almost makes, in fact, I was reading in one of the articles that we're actually educating less people now than we were a few years ago because of the cost of it. So we have to get the businesses back into the state, get this economy turning over again by, you know, reforming Measure 67 and making it so companies aren't paying on their gross income, actually on what they're making. Expand Highway 97 to so businesses want to come into this area, and so we can get more money on that area. Bringing the enterprise zones in like they did in Primeville and up in the Dalles area, so we can bring, you know, the next Google or Facebook here into the basin that ties right in with OIT, so the students can work, you know, learn here and work here, and so we don't lose our next generation like I did, and so we can keep our families together and our family way of life, and protect our, you know, restore our economy, protect protect our way of life. That's kind of my theme, and that's what I want to do. But we've got to restore this economy. We've got to make it more business friendly. We've got to get business in, because they're who pays the bills, and that's what we've got to get going.
Congressman Greg Walden always talks generally when he comes through the area about, the red tape and the government regulations, and of course he's speaking Washington, D.C. As you campaign, what are you hearing about state regulations that are really creating issues and problems? Anything specific that you're hearing or that you have firsthand knowledge of that you see as needing to change to maybe attract businesses and also at the same time allow businesses already here to maybe expand and hire more people? Yeah,
I think there's a lot of regulations going to be fixed, like Measure 67 that changes that tax code. But, you said personally, while we're expanding our ranch, we have a renter that's growing fish. And he was growing a cichlid, which is a tropical aquarium type fish, but he wanted to start growing tilapia. And it's non-native to Oregon, and an Oregon Fish and Wildlife Department says, no, we can't really say why, but we're just not going to give you the permit. Wouldn't say no, they just kind of keep passing him on. He worked on it for over 6 years trying to get this permit. And I finally had to call the director and say, I want you on my ranch. I don't care what the answer is, but I want a yes or no answer so we can either move forward or go somewhere else. And he came out, looked at the situation, and says, fine, we'll give you the permit. Now they give them away all over Oregon. But, it's those kind of things. The biomass plant has been working for over 2 years and are still a year off of getting their permit. So
you're not concerned about alleged negative health effects from the plant?
I think there's less negative effects there than the slash burning that's going on in the forest fires that are burning in the forest, how the forest fire is degrading and not being handled. With the biomass plant, we at least have the opportunity with the rules and regulations that we have today to go in and clean, get something out of it. We have carbon scrubbers on the biomass plant. There may be some traffic issues, but the road's already been improved from where it was when Weyerhaeuser was hauling trucks in there. And we may have the state legislature have to do something to help fix the problem if it becomes an issue. But that's what our job is to get things moving, get our economy going, and if there's something wrong, find the answer and find out how to fix it. That's what the legislature is there to do. And so that's what I want to do and work on these things. But our forest is terrible, and as a state legislator, there's not a lot I can do at the state or at the federal level, but we can push and work programs like Greg Walden's I want to see Job and Trust program to get some more logging done on the ONC grounds and in the federal grounds, so we can get our people back to work. The other part of bringing the economy back to work, to get more money for education, to get more money for public safety. They all fit together, but it all has to do with jobs, economy, and if you've been around Campbell Lake up there and seen what the beetle kill up there does, it is just, terrible. But the federal government should have done something about that at the very first. If I, as a private owner, have a fire start on my property and it goes into federal forest, I get a bill for it.
Right.
But their beetle started on there and went to private ground. They're not paying those private ground owners for that timber. But it's still an issue, and where it stopped is on the private ground, because the private grounds went in there and actually done some work and stopped the spread. So it can be done, but we need to make sure we push on those agents to be more profitable for our community and our environment. We got to look at both of them, and we got to look forward.
As we wrap up, take about a minute or so and tell our listeners why they should vote for you, Tracey Liskey. Go ahead.
Well, in closing, I'd like to say we face a lot of challenges. But all these challenges can be frustrating at times. There is really nothing too complicated, too large, or too controversial if we're really willing to roll up our sleeves and work together, because together we can make a real difference in Salem. And, that's what I want to bring, is that ability to work together and make a difference in Salem. I want to sell Klamath Falls to Salem, sell our beauty, sell the district, Lakeview, Klamath, the whole area, and represent this area in Salem to be very good. And my name is Tracey Liskey, and I want to thank you for your time, and I humbly ask for your vote on May 15th.
Tracey Liskey is a candidate for the Republican House District nomination for District number 56. It's 8:59, top of the hour news, and then it'll be the Laura Ingraham Show. Tracey, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.